up, depending,
Yeah.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
getting the things done, or you, and then what, even as you do an overview of the week, there are some goals you probably would have set for the month, and you are saying, okay, these things need to happen. So in order for that thing to become a reality, there are some things I need to do this week to put the things in flow. And I
Mm.
believe that is how God works in our lives
What, week by week?
daily, long term.
Minutely.
Yes,
Um,
prophetically, He speaks.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I actually I think at this stage of my life I plan in a different way. Um, I've always been very kind of result oriented, and so I have like long term
Mhm.
view of what I'm trying to accomplish, and then on a daily basis I seek to ensure that all the things I'm doing move towards that long term objective. But I have a deeper planning cycle. When I think about it, I'm always sort of connected to, all right, where am I trying to go with this in a more macroeconomic sense. Like take for example what we're doing on the morning connection. I have a sense that the morning connection will be or is one plank in an overall strategy to impact change through advocacy and just persistent calling out of things. And it's one plank. Other planks are the CNXC project, the education, social reform, intervention type projects that we look for coming out of what we are saying and what concerns people are expressing. So when I look at the morning connection and conversations we have and the topics we choose, I'm seeing the impact or the role it can play in a larger picture. And so if it doesn't progress rapidly in day one or two or three, I'm mirroring it more as an end run and I'm looking incremental gains that are um, that trend in a particular direction. And then I create some mini, like some milestone events that I want to
Mhm.
I want to accomplish, and then I try to move things around. So if you look at how I move at any given moment, you can't really see what the short term objective is. Um,
I have another way of looking at it. Even when things come my way to deal with, I look at it in regard to, I'm in a war.
mm,
I'm in a war. But in a war, there are battles that come along the way.
mm.
And there are decisions that I take in terms of the different things that would come at, would seek to bombard me. And I act strategically. If I win this battle, how does it affect winning the war?
So how do you see your perspective differing from mine? Because if
Then,
you're in a war, your overall objective is to win that war.
right, something,
So you're
so look at it that in terms of where you're going.
oh, I thought
Okay,
you had it for I
no,
thought
no,
you
no, no,
saw
I'm just,
some
no, man, I'm just
oh
saying,
okay.
like, that's how I think of it in terms of the,
Whatever imagery used
mhm,
to describe how your strategy, planning and so on,
mhm.
use
War.
you
A
use
man, I mean, our right, right, so every day we're in a war.
yeah.
That's a man, that interesting how the male mind works, and one things that we have now, and people do in church. A lot of men are not attracted to church because we do things in terms of projects. We have to do, so we not into the constant sitting and talking. Let's go do something.
So men are not into the constant sitting and talking. Men are into something.
Yes.
That's what
After
you're
we
saying.
talk, it's to get up and work.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, may have been in the world for a very long time, so they've done a lot of sitting and talking. Not to be distracted by that.
That's the word we're in.
Yes,
Yeah.
you has the war and the war. You're a general. You're a general.
Depending on
What
what
is it?
stage
What
of
is
history
it?
that
All
we
right. Okay. In this war, I'm planning a strategy, I have maps. I'm
are.
seeing it from where
Good
it
enough.
lands. Not making it a competition, just fixing a point of orientation. For me, that's my plan. And when I'm looking at life that way, I have a point of origin, which is very rooted in my sense of self, my identity, who I am, what my purpose is, and so on and so forth. And on the weekend, I ended up in like three different conversations, three different sets of persons, and everything that we were talking about brought up this issue of identity and cult orientation. Who do you think you are? Who you really are in a sort of a finite sense? And what are your points of reference? I started off on that. The first conversation came up in contemplating a bit of scripture, and I'm trying to remember. The scripture, the actual scripture is irrelevant. The gist of it I can share with you. It had to do with the reconciliation plan that God had, having seen the fall of man, orchestrated it so that there would be a movement back to Him and identifying His Son as the gateway and describe all those who choose to leave and who choose to be find a foundation in that philosophy. Really say to us that's who we are. It really matter. We came here, it is bloodline, who is always lead to a relationship with Creator. Um, it became a talking point because in the first conversation, there was one person who was having some challenges, or not challenges, just having some moments acknowledging that, okay, Father, my father wasn't involved in my life. I don't really know how my bloodline is structured. And in fact, my sister told a very funny story about a child who
Johnny
was
sister.
one of the old ones,
Okay.
a child who was in her class at primary or high school, whose surname was the name, I'm not going to call the name because then the name of the brand of a business that was on a motor vehicle that came to the community delivering goods. The driver of the van had an intimate relationship with someone in the community. Everybody called driver by the name of the business, like say it name Palmer's Bread. They know driver as Michael Palmer. Say. So when the child was born, the mother registered the child with a surname taken off the side of a van. And that child had that name until she was in adulthood when true paternity was acknowledged. The proper name. She did a default to put the proper name on her paper.
All of the time.
Yeah.
If I understand the story, she didn't go into life because her mother just a name.
Let's say it's Ramson. It's not Ramson.
So Palmer just took Palmer off thing, and it wasn't Palmer's child at all.
No. The man with whom she had child was Dan. But she thought his name was and later on in life he acknowledged the child and gave the child
his proper name.
But the child going through school had the same name that you would see on the vehicle. They thought that was his name. And she had been having their liaisons, he come through on a daily basis or whatever, delivering products, and he had his girlfriend in the community, and the child was born. So it was. So
that's a wonderful story.
Yeah, but that is a Jamaican story. When you see some people put some funny surname and you wonder, is that really a name? But given time, so for example, if that father hadn't thought and said, listen, Paul, your name is really X, she probably would have had a child, and let's say she had a child, a single parent, she'll give the child that name, and the child, it's a male child, would come the starting point for a whole tribe. That's the name. Yeah. Right, okay. So talk about that people having, with a history, with that sort of confusion, people being able to take name and use to trace the bloodline if you were to right. Like we say, all Palmer related.
Even though some in Saint and some kind of some in South and
right.
But the stories that were three brothers.
Yes, the story, as you say. Is it confirmed?
Yeah, you need to go. She to go down.
Yeah, actually, I have a cousin of mine is busy.
Trying to chase some bloodline.
Yeah, but right.
So they came from Scotland.
Yeah. So all of that is to say that when we invest so much time trying to track the actual DNA, and if we are really invested in that as in the idea that who we are is in some way determined by our ancestral lineage, then depending on the state of mind, you can be very distracted by it. You can be so distracted by it that you miss the opportunity to truly progress, to truly build yourself. So we're in the conversation. Yeah, I kind of reflected. No, although I know that my father is so, and my grandfather is Isaac. I can't look very far beyond that. And when I look at Isaac and look at my dad's name was Melford. When I look at Isaac and I look at Melford and I come down Minette, I don't see enough to give me such a sense of belonging in a place in the world that I can mountains and demand and insist on and exercise authority. I don't see any of that because, like all black people, I am my close memory is of suffering and oppression. So I thought all of that. I can remember when I decided, you know what, that's not who I am. That cannot be some total of who I am. I go back to source. Who created me and why? So it was interesting to see in scripture, and I did without any scripture. It was interesting later in life to see in scripture that that's what we need to do. And that is the manual that came with humanity, so to speak.
You mean reference point?
Yes. Your reference point must begin with your creator and do not be distracted by anything in between. So that was the first conversation.
And there was a scripture in the Second Corinthians 5:19 to 20.
Yes.
God was the works of Christ, accounting people's sins as against them and as committed to the message of reconciliation. Yeah. That's the one that you had quoted in regards to. But interesting that you say that because in Acts 17, when Paul was at Mars Hill, he pointed to the fact that God was created. He know we have different nations, and so it originally came from him. So
that was sort of my faith.
Okay.
If I cannot be inspired by any immediate historical data concerning my origin, I just need to cut past all of that and go right back to the source and build myself from that point.
Your reference.
So I don't need to be humbled by my father know me now, for me, hear from him, or any of those things that are so troubling and are so immediate in our history. And then interestingly now this morning in today's dinner, I see a headline: Thwaites and Chelsea have an idea. And in the middle of Ronald Thwaites identifying the things that separate him from, I'm gonna read some of you. Honorable Perennial Chelsea and myself are unlikely collaborators given the poisonous divisions of Jamaican politics and society. He is a Rockstone Liberal who, had there ever been a really honest public poll, would have been party leader. Me, a Lieutenant People's National Party member. He, a peasant-bred black man whose only whiteness is half his hairstyle. Me, a white middle-class Jamaican. El Charles, a Latter Adventist. Me, a Catholic deacon. What caught my attention was a peasant-bred black man.
That's that.
It's not true. It's not true. But it does feature as a part of how Ronald Thwaites, a white middle-class Jamaican, chose to describe Perennial Charles.
Also, who do you have described him?
What else? I'm not saying there should have been a break. I'm saying I have said that it's true. It's not untrue.
Okay.
It's not true. Now, if you remain distracted by that reality, what do you get?
No. Get
What
nothing
would that
nowhere.
mean, peasant for a black man?
You'd see there's no goodness coming out of him, which is why it is interesting that you have raised this point. Because I was even pondering it on the weekend of all different things that have merged that seek to prevent us from walking and giving purpose and fulfilling destiny. We use those except for having past slavery, serfdom in different cultures, even the Indians with the caste system.
Mm.
It prevents you from really achieving and going where God intended for you as a human being, creating the enlightenment of the very foundation of the earth. Because again, that is mindset, that is distraction, those are things that the person doesn't know, which is the enemy of ours wants to do. So don't achieve what God has intended for us. So sure, that you raised, I was just pondering out that this weekend.
Yeah.
But hello, where is our point of in terms of what do we do or do we become? What was mentioned before the very foundation of the earth in God alone and how he saw us. Yeah.
So you asked how else could you have this game?
Mhm.
And my first thought is if I were writing an article like this where I'm looking at the difference between myself and say I'm just think and look at the difference between myself and somebody else.
Mhm.
What did I choose?
Mhm.
What I choose. It seems fairly automatic that you look at difference in politics,
But you
difference
did.
in your financial or economic situation. I imagine I would look at the difference in education.
Mhm.
It is still that you look in.
But
I'm just I'm saying nothing about it
the
to
world of
me.
today, that
Yeah.
is what tries to see in place. No, it
Mm.
not.
But mostly when I think of how I interpret persons, I'm more interested. Is that honest person or someone
Yeah,
who I have I'm interested in
which is what
character.
race has done. Instead of, I think, Martin Luther King made that saying that we must not people in terms of color of skin, but be like cotton they are. Well,
Yeah, so if you like this now,
Mhm.
just to think to you of the points of difference between Bell Charles, Honorable Colonel Charles, and the Ronald Fates, Reverend Ronald Fates.
Mhm.
There's nothing here that speaks character.
I die,
Himself, yeah.
and I die.
Liberals, left center,
Mhm.
PNP,
Mhm.
peasant bread,
Mhm.
middle class,
None of those things speak to
Adventists.
those speak to looks at the able that we have signed, we try to assign different people based on how we see them. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, those people that causes for classism, causes for division, causes for strife in us.
Oh, definitely there.
Mhm.
What is the net there is image.
Mhm.
Peasant red black man,
Mhm.
and me white middle class.
Mhm.
In the second constitution of the day, concerning the issue, the second constitution, no, I'm going to go to the third constitution. The second constitution I was with Nice. The third constitution was, I was part of a discussion, a son was speaking about his father and the relationship with his father. And this son is university educated, professional of the world, very financially savvy, entrepreneurial. And his father is a tradesman with a very useful skill, but still a tradesman who is running his business in a way that the success is shaky. He says, it's shaky.
She mean she there.
No, she.
Okay.
Don't understand with water,
Mhm.
lacking in organization and so on. But then after a while, he realized that his father did not have the capacity
Mhm.
to do otherwise.
Mhm.
Like he would say things that I see that I realized after time he doesn't have capacity to do otherwise. And I cannot the word capacity and a child saying my not capacity. The word capacity struck me. I saw it as a very fair condition. I saw it as child with the benefit of the fellow
Tennis school and stuff.
give a large content which makes decision
Mhm.
coming to have about capacity and really all at the same capacity. We use it, it's trim the minimum benefit or whatever. It's a different thing. When we begin to say, okay, I look behind I don't capacity, then I try to think how that influence my identity. Am I actually of my brain or her working brain? I'm gonna come back to this issue of identity and cultural orientation
Where
as
is
that
your
what
identity?
Bottom, one euro, keep listening. Jamaica's own predictive vision become the business outsourcing and logistics hub of the region, welcoming investors from across the globe. An agency key to this is the Port Authority of Jamaica, PAJ. Minister Andrew Holness says the country is already reaping the benefits of the investments made by the authority.
It appears the geopolitical winds are changing for us and we must grab it quickly, lock it in, build on it so that we are sustainable and resilient. For that to happen, we have to have infrastructure. Infrastructure is key for growth. And so the Port Authority understands that.
The PAJ recently opened the expanded Portmore Informatics Park in St. Catherine, a 157,000 square foot facility built at a cost of $3.6 billion.
We need to be creating the knowledge economy here. And how do we enter this economy, the knowledge economy? Well, one way to start would be with business processing and knowledge processing. And that is why I have supported and encouraged the Port Authority and other private sector companies to build these facilities.
The upgraded space features 4 three-story buildings which have all been leased, employing approximately 2,000 persons in the areas of banking and finance, air travel, electronics, telecommunications, healthcare, e-commerce, and energy. Over in the West, the PAJ is exploring plans to develop the 11
lies prefer the truth, the unnatural put above the natural. This is Lady Donna, aka Double D Don, with a new song, Almighty Jah, encouraging your people to keep the faith that God will make a way. Get your copy today. It's on all digital platforms. Lady Donna Official on Instagram, Facebook, AsujaRecords.com. For bookings, Asuja Record Label at Gmail. Almighty Jah!
What should a taxi service do for you? On-Time Taxi Service is more than just a ride to the other side of town. They offer clean and spacious vehicles, reliable service, and promise to always look out for their customers. They'll come when you call and take you where you want to go on time.
Call us on 926-3866.
We are something special on the road.
For a better choice in all your electrical supplies, A, authorized 3M dealer and better brand names. B, better service including free island-wide credit and debit cards accepted. It's ABC Electrical Sales, shop number 8.
So please join us, Minette and Percy, on the Morning Connection, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Best 100 FM.
It's good. It's better. But nothing beats.
Well, welcome back to the Morning Connection. We're talking this morning about a small but powerful issue: identity and cultural orientation. And I preface my comments by drawing from an article in today's paper written by Reverend Ronald Thwaites, in which he is talking about some agreement between himself and another senior politician, Pernell Charles. And he starts off by making mention of the things that divide them, the differences between them. Yet they rose above those differences to come to an agreement on what ought to be done in this country for young people. It's about training, investment in training is what they've settled on. But in describing Pernell Charles, Ronald Thwaites made mention of his peasant-bred background.
Pedigree.
His pedigree.
Pedigree.
Charles being like most of us, man of supremely dark color, described as peasant-bred. Ronald Thwaites, who has more milk in his skin, middle class, white middle class Jamaican, is how he has described himself.
And I ask you the question in terms of person's reality, how people see each other. So that's the reality. But then how do I change reality? I was asking the question, you were responding saying how else to get the message across in terms of what he was saying, could he have described Pernell Charge and also described himself? Because as human beings, we like labels. They're liberal, progressive, fundamentalists.
Charismatic.
Put labels on people because unfortunately, most of us are comfortable with putting labels on individual because it makes us feel good. What do you say?
The label make us feel good.
Or it helps to put things in categories that we can better understand what is happening.
The labels work to reinforce some stereotypes and is a part of keeping the status quo. Whatever the status quo is, we use labels as reference points to ensure that people stay in the lane. So the feel good part of it, labels don't make me feel good. As I said, I grew up, you see, I think when you grow up like in a farming community or if you grow up close to the land, you eventually, I think your view of it change, and it's more about character and reliability of an individual than anything else. So my labels begin with more characteristics that speak to, can I rely on you? Can I count on you if rain or fall? Close on the line. Will you go? Can I comfortably say, see there, you'll take them.
It's labels. It's still labels. Those are still labels. Integrity, honesty, they're still labels.
Power labels. Because I think if they speak to the intangible thing about an individual, you can put from places in external.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but what I'm saying in terms of saying that's honest. It's honest. Labels are good things, But when you begin to label people, so you stay in that lane, that's when it becomes wrong. Labels are good things. All right, if I use it tangible, but that is an honest man. That man is dishonest. You have differentiated between honest and dishonest. It's a label.
I'm pausing because I think we've crossed lanes somewhat.
No, but I'm just saying
because
labels can be good. Labels can be bad.
It's not the label itself. I'm talking about the kind of label then.
Oh, right.
I'm it's more kind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm focusing on.
Right, that's the
rather
same
than it's
thing,
a
right?
yeah.
Kind of label, because as you rightly say, you label or describe someone in a certain way, you are saying to them, you stay there, you don't come across here, and it can be good and bad.
And usually you are using something that the person can't change.
Right.
Because you're using a descriptor that is fixed in time and that is unchangeable because of what. If you say he's a peasant bred black man, he cannot change what his parents did. He can't change the color of his skin, though many are trying. And many are trying to change gender too, but
Yes,
right.
but the agreement is the
Right.
kind of labels that we
See,
put on
that's
people,
what is-
which is that is detrimental to them.
Right.
You stay in that place.
Right.
You
And
don't
it's,
move
and
from-
it's always based on something you can't change.
Right, right.
You cannot change the fact that I'm a black woman in Jamaica.
True.
If I move to somewhere else, I'm away from.
Are you an African or African
Right. Those are
and
those are
European?
things about you that you can't change.
Right.
But yeah, if I base my description of you or my opinion of you on how you relate to me, now that you can change.
That's correct.
Because
you have the
yesterday you
caliber-
were mean to me, but today you can be kind.
Yes, right.
Right. So I vote for that.
Yeah.
But suffice to say, all of that talk and consideration about identity led to this question that I'm putting for you now, Pastor Percy. What's in a name? What in
There's
a
a lot
name?
in a name, girl. There's a lot in a name.
Right. So
At
we
the name
have,
of Jesus, every knee shall bow, and every tongue confess. But people say, but you have other people, you have Jesus, who plays for Man City. But it is the name that people recognize. It's like when these guys says, we call you out, we cast you out in the name of Jesus.
they don't mean Jesus of Nazareth.
No, no, they never mean that at all. You know, Jesus of Man City, what they're talking about, because the demons recognize who Jesus was, because there's a character and power that is backing him.
All right. So the
Yes.
name carries power. That is not, in fact, I would say the power exists before the name.
Oh,
and,
yes.
and
sister.
so the name is a label on something that it is recognizing.
Been already,
that it
because they recognize who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even in a lot of cultures, like in African culture, name is important because it sets you on apart in terms of what your parents are declaring over you, in terms of what you be, like a king, prince, or even the Jewish culture. Names were so very important. for them.
Invested with power.
Yes, man.
All right. Kind of like the guard ring.
You
Invested
understand,
in-
because they don't understand that they don't have no power behind it. 'Cause when people reach power, people run away. Yes.
All right. The reason I pose that question, Pastor, is because we are being visited by the president of India. His name Ramnath Kovind, and there is a little article talking about a part of Tower Street being renamed
Because of the gentleman.
Ambedkar. No, Ambedkar was India's Marcus Garvey, says diplomat ahead of Tower Street renaming. If you're not paying attention, this is what is happening. I'm gonna read from the coverage of it, right? Often parallels with the advocacy of Jamaica's first national hero, Marcus Garvey. Indian High Commissioner Masakui Rongsong has described the decision to rename parts of Tower Street after his country's civil rights leader, the late Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, as a touching tribute. The request was made in the latter half of 2021, was formally approved by the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation during a special sitting of at the Jamaica Conference Center on May 6th. It was a tremendous and fascinating moment for me. It was very emotional too, because more than 50,000 kilometers from India, the KSAMC debated, deliberated, and articulated very beautifully and forcefully in favor of this, Rongsong said in a Gleaner interview on Sunday. All right. Ambedkar being uttered in Jamaica until I saw it in the paper today. I don't know how many Jamaicans are aware that a street in downtown Kingston, part of it, is being renamed in honor of an Indian civil rights leader of 75 years ago, I think it is. He was the father and architect of our Constitution, the Constitution of the largest democracy in the world. After 75 years, this Constitution stands and has served us, while many constitutions in other parts of the world have faltered. All right.
So who was the guy?
Okay, to India. I want to know who he was to Jamaica. How did his life and his work touch on Jamaica more than the work of other Jamaicans or other black people within our part of which is named in honor of a civil rights activist leader from India? I'm curious. I only saw this morning, and it says I think it's worth mentioning here because one, it hasn't escaped my attention that the Commonwealth Secretary General vote it will be cast next month, and India is a member of the Commonwealth.
I'm a very powerful member. And somebody
Yes.
related to me, which I didn't know, that because of what has happened with him, was generated
Scotland.
in Scotland. Some of the big countries have pulled away funding from the Commonwealth because of that thing. And we need to just verify it. It's in passing, somebody was saying it to because of that incident, the bigger ones, the bigger countries pull funding. So, wow. Interesting.
But so I'm curious about it, and it hasn't escaped my notice that Jamaica is lobbying for support, and I don't doubt that some horse trading is taking place somewhere. But what caught my
Russian horses in
attention
Jamaica, no?
across the international
You,
trade now,
you need to explain.
horse trading,
Is a term that has emerged when given that I give you. That's what it is, right?
like cowboy language,
Yes.
gotcha horse.
Gotcha.
But all right, donkey trading,
Yes. And even
mule trading,
people understand. Yes.
trading. I think once everybody hear the word trading, so we have no doubt. I have no doubt that Jamaica is lobbying and making the arrangements that. And
Put in.
certainly in this time when we even buy one another vote in Jamaica,
But it's not
surely
easy. It's not incomprehensible that
it's
they
not
would.
absolutely that favors are being traded.
We know that very, don't we, in Jamaican politics?
Absolutely. And
So they
some
make
might
it
say
international.
that it
That's always been there. So
well, and
tongue in
yeah,
cheek.
we saw all that happen with football.
Yes.
All the things that happened in the World Football Federation. Here's the thing, World
No, the
Football
FIFA.
Federation.
Yeah,
FIFA.
FIFA.
Right. So these are made. What is of concern to me is that we have so many Jamaicans who have contributed to national life in one way or another. I am going to hunt down
White Tower
what I
Street.
can find about the rationale for Tower Street being partly named after an Indian man who was written in but in Jamaica. I don't know who he is Jamaica. To see what were we saying, how did we come to this place,
We know
and
about
and
Torquay
fail to
Correctional
recognize our
Center.
own.
We know about Street Connect Correctional Center.
But you see, like maybe say, I don't know. They talk about, they say what he did now. He was from a very low stratum in society, a humble and discriminated background. He himself faced serious discrimination during his lifetime. Not only did Ambedkar wage war against discrimination for marginalized communities, he was also a champion for women's and children's rights during a time when those issues were taboo in India, not Jamaica. He was far ahead of his time, even today. During his time, he spoke about equal inheritance rights for women, even that illegitimate children should have equal rights in the family and inheritance law in India. That was more than 75 years ago before our constitution came into force, and he was fighting for that. Then the counselor from Tivoli Gardens, Davon Samuels, at the KSASC meeting said that Jamaica has a rich history of honoring and supporting human rights lobbyists. He described Ambedkar as a champion of the poor and lower class, said it would be fitting to recognize the late campaigner. Council of Papillon, Venture Phillips, called for the erection of a monument in honor of Ambedkar. The official ceremony to rename sections of the street to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Avenue will take place on Monday, the second of a 4-day visit by Indian President Ramnath Kovind. The president will this morning lay floor to Marcus Garvey. Okay, where in all of that do you see any justification for an almost unpronounceable name to be slapped on a part of
With all the Rambi.
Hold on, BR, Ram in the name? Ambedkar?
Ab
Understand
Street.
it.
Jamaica.
Yeah.
Ambedkar.
Bed Street,
Bed
maybe?
Street. Ambedkar Street.
Bedgar Street.
We're doing
Come on, Jamaica. What are we doing? We're on our own. We're all the way in. And we don't even, as we are reporting on it, we don't even say it to Jamaicans. This is something because make a connection. So that brings me to the other point I want to make this morning. Even as we are seeing to make decisions in a certain context, what is the news coverage? What's the local or international newsworthy items that are within our purview? Because I'm looking at, I had a paper on the weekend and I said, Jamaica is almost at the point of civil unrest in relation to
What's happening?
work.
You-
Workers
Yeah,
workers
sorry,
are
yeah,
crisis.
sorry. The thing. In the paper this morning.
Oh, the cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah, we are this. Let me tell you, if you were to use the timeline that they are putting in those
Agreements.
agreements, we are anything from 3 weeks to 3 months away from civil unrest.
And it's
Because
interesting.
yeah,
And my adult year, my children were adults, commented on it yesterday. They said that not making no sense, you know. It's building. It's building.
Of course.
And they're saying, all right, 6 months, but when you look at all these agreements that have been reached, are they buying time? Buying time?
well, listen to me. You have been treating people in a certain way for decades,
Mhm.
and you are gonna fix it in
6 months?
3 weeks to 6 months.
Right.
The first thing is, and I applaud. I've been wondering for years. I've been saying, what are the unions really doing in Jamaica? What are they really doing? When I studied law, labor law was so. I loved 2 things. I loved labor law and loved family law.
Yes.
To them with people at the heart of it, because law was not my desire.
Yeah, that's what I got, but
Yeah.
excellent.
But I've
Understanding
the
the law.
knowledge, so now I seek to use it as best I can. But labor law and family law, I love those 2 subjects were my favorite subjects. And when you learn labor law within a political and economic context, not a legal context, but people think about what it means to mobilize people, to have people at the center of your planning, and then to see how society can emerge from your treatment of people, you realize that wow, this is the foundation for growth and prosperity. If I can figure out how to treat my labor force, how to harness it, how to motivate it, how to drive it in certain directions, this is really how countries can shift and grow.
The
Or
countries
how
that
they
have done
collapse.
that, countries that have done
Countries,
that
yes.
are on a path of thriving,
No
prosperity.
place up.
Yeah, but and that is what has happened. Because if you remember earlier this year, we looked at World Bank said about labor, and we quoted from what they said, and they said the greatest investment, even with the pandemic, must be in the people. You know, how you treat the people.